I smelled my hair burning. I tasted the gas. I could smell my skin. And I crouched down, covered my eyes, and screamed out to put me out. I was given 5% chance to survive my injuries. And everything but my groin and my feet were burned.
Crystal, where were you born and what was early life like for you?
I was born in Southern California. I am the middle child of 5 total children between my parents. I lost my father in a drunk driving accident at 2.5. And for me to experience that trauma at such a young age, I really feel like that affected me going forward for a lot of my life. He just walked out the door one day and he never came back. And I was confused. And my family was sad. So I wasn't sure what was going on because I was so young. But so that's one of my earliest memories, is the trauma of losing my father. And my mom struggling with that so much afterwards. Her struggling with relationships after that. And her own substance use and lots of chaos early on in my life. So when we moved from Southern California up back to Alaska, where my parents met in Alaska when they were teenagers, and being with my mom's family and stuff, it was exciting to be around kids in that way, but the more we were like around family and friends and stuff, I started being exposed to family members that would abuse me, touch me in inappropriate ways. Simply put, before the age of 9, I had experienced every type of abuse there is to experience in your life. And I was still a child.
I'm sorry you went through that.
Me too. So my first experience with using substances, hard substances, was in my own home as a child. When I first used them, I didn't see it. I was like, I didn't really like the way it felt. I didn't really like the way it tasted. And I really didn't get the attraction, why everybody was so attracted. It wasn't the greatest thing for me in my first experience. And it quickly became the way to kind of fit in and socialize. Like, all these people in my life, this is what they were doing. This is what they did. And like, it was almost like my rite of passage. And to think back now, it turns my stomach to think about that. But there was just that's how we began socializing at a very young age. And that I would continue to use substances in some form or another for most of my adult life after that.
And are you comfortable sharing a little bit about what those substances were?
At one point, anything that would give me a funny feeling. Whether it be drinking in excess, taking excessive amounts of pills, taking excessive amounts of uppers, downers. Like, there's very little that I have. I hate to share this, but there's very little I haven't tried.
Tell me a bit about your teenage years. What was life like for you during that period?
So my mom ended up kicking me out, and we kind of I was leaving and she didn't want me there anyway. So we kind of parted ways. I was 13 and I started kind of couch surfing at 13. By the time I was 15, I had met my children's father and I got pregnant. And he was 5 years older than me. And at the time I thought, I'm an adult. Like, I was living an adult life. I didn't have any rules. I didn't have parents to answer to. And ended up getting pregnant because I was not being responsible. And at the time, I had kind of mixed emotions. I was not in a place where I could take care of myself. So how was I going to take care of another human? Their father and I ended up moving in together, and we were together for the next 3 years, but he started abusing me when I was pregnant, and it stopped when I finally left at 18. And so we separated ways, and when we separated ways, I ended up finding out I was pregnant again. And so I do have 2 children by the same man. Between like 18 and 21, I was dabbling with substances, but while I was pregnant with my children, was totally clean and totally about being a mom and trying, doing all the things perfectly, reading all the books, going to the little classes before you have a baby, all those things, doing all the things right. The 3rd trimester of my pregnancy came, I was having some back pain, and my doctor prescribed me some prescription pain medicine. At that same time, I had other friends around me that had chronic conditions that were regularly prescribed prescription medication. And so when the doctor stopped giving me prescriptions after my pregnancy, I just started buying them off the street. And what started with one quickly, well, not quickly, but over the course of about 10 years, was I would take one every day, and then over the course of the 10 years that I continued to do them, when I stopped with the prescription pills, I was taking about 20 a day, 20 at a time when I would take them. And I'm not proud of this, and I'm not sharing any of this to glorify any of my past, but would try to function and function doing that. And I can remember times where I was standing up, talking, and nodding out, and because I was on so many pain pills, and so that was fast forward till I used prescription pills from the age of 21 to 30. Well, in that time frame, I've had a few failed relationships, and a failed marriage, and my drug use then graduated to methamphetamine and eventually heroin and whatever I could get a funny feeling from, whatever I could numb my feelings, and that same old coping mechanism that I had, the trusty old numb your feelings from childhood with whatever is around. Once I had already done those horrible drugs that I always said I would never do, it was almost like it was a lost cause. Why? I've already done it. I'm already damaged goods. What's the point of even stopping now? And so then it really took on a life of its own.
And what was your mental health, your well-being like during that time, and actually your self-esteem as well?
My self-esteem was non-existent. I think that's part of the reason. I think that's part of the reason why you continue to do more and more and more, because you don't want to feel, and you're hoping that maybe this next time you just won't wake up. I had been up for days, had not slept or eaten. It's kind of hazy, at least 3 3 to 7 days I had been up and not eating and using lots of heavy substances. I was living in a remote area in like a camper trailer because I was still struggling with my homelessness along with my substance use. By this time had lost custody of my teenage child at the time because of my actions and the drug use. So I was in this disgusting camper that nobody should be calling a home, but that's what I called home at the time. And we were in a remote area, away from cell phone service, away from a lot of people, away from running water, electricity, cell phone, any of those. To anybody that's, used all night like that or been on a bender, and when you hear the birds chirp in the morning, like you have been up all night. And so you're thinking about all the time you wasted and all the things you were doing. Feeling guilty, shame, all these thoughts pouring in. How am I going to explain myself to everybody who's helped me? How am I going to look at my kid in the eyes and say, I failed you again? And I got a knock at the window, and it was the person that had abused me for years as a child. The last person I wanted to see that day. And I was instantly pissed, instantly just shaking mad. And I thought about my actions for literally less than a few minutes. Like, it was quick. I was so pissed to see his face. How dare you come to my camper after you, all of these thoughts. And so as soon as I saw his face, I stood up and came flying out the camper door. I can't remember exactly what I was saying to him, but exchange of words. I was angry, instantly mad. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw my gas can sitting there for the chainsaw that I had at the time, and thought, nothing's ever going to get better. He's never going to leave me alone. I'm never going to outlive this screw up. Everybody would be better off. I would be better off because he won't bug me anymore. And everybody would be better off because I'm not going to be a burden. Nobody's going to have to wonder where I'm at. Nobody's going to have to help me anymore. So I started pouring gas over myself. And screaming at him. I could taste the gas. It was burning my eyes. And I was still, could feel it running down my body. And looked at him and lit the lighter. And it didn't light. And I lit it again. And it lit. And I instantly regretted my decision. I smelled my hair burning. I tasted the gas. I could smell my skin. And I crouched down, covered my eyes and screamed out to put me out. And we're in the remote wilderness. There's no running water. There's no electricity. There's nothing to really put me out with. And it had happened to have rained, and I had a tote that was 18 gallons, not very much, that was full of laundry that had been rained on. And he picked up that tote and poured it on me and smothered out the flames. And I don't remember anything until I woke up in the hospital. I was given 5% chance to survive my injuries, and everything but my groin and my feet were burned. The first conversations I had with any of my family were when I was still in ICU, when I was first brought to the hospital. They weren't sure if I had done it to myself or if the person that was there had done it to me. And because I was intubated by the time I got to the hospital and they couldn't identify me, I was they put me under Jane Doe, Claire Doe. There was multiple things they called me, but they couldn't positively identify me until my family got there to identify me. And so, like, there's all these different layers of trauma that go with that. But one of my first conversations was about 3 weeks in, and my mom came into the room and she grabbed my hand. And she looked in my eyes and she said, "Crystal, I need to know if you did this to yourself or if somebody else did this to you." And I'll never forget the pain in her eyes. And like, she was sure somebody else did this to me. And so was my family, my siblings. They were sure somebody else did it to me. And I was coherent enough to know, like, to think about, oh, they think he did this to me. I could totally throw him under the bus. But I didn't want to be dishonest. And so I broke my mom's heart by telling her, I did this to myself. And I remember asking the nurse. She wanted me to think about what I was going to talk to my family about the next day. She said, "Crystal, I want you to think about what you want to tell your family when they come in the morning to see you." And I'm like, okay, I'll think about it. She goes, "Well, I want you to tell me what you want to tell them, because you might not make it to see them." And that's when I realized, wow, I am dying. I could die. And I told her to tell them that I loved them. And that this was not their fault. And that I was sorry. And that I wanted them to take a picture, even if I had passed away. Which, now thinking back, I can't believe I asked them to do that. But it did help me. They did end up taking a picture with me. I didn't pass away, obviously, but they took a picture with me and they sent it to me. And I had that at the foot of my bed, like on the wall at the foot of my bed, the entire stay after that. And so I would wake up and see my kids as soon as I opened my eyes. And that really helped helped me recover in the hospital. So the first time I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the mirror in a surface, then I was like shocked, because I had no hair. My eyes were stitched shut. I had no ears. Most of my nose is gone now. My mouth doesn't open the same. I lost my whole identity. Everything it makes you a woman. My breasts are now disfigured, everything. And so I would look in the mirror, if I see in the mirror, and just say angry, horrible, disgusting things to myself, because that's how I felt. I would go on a big tirade, freaking out about how the hospital and the staff is wasting their time, wasting their resources, and that I was not worthy. Why, like, totally tell them that they're wasting their time and their energy on a homeless drug addict that didn't deserve it. And I would tell them that a lot. And within earshot of anybody could hear me.
But those doctors and nurses, they kind of kept treating you, and they saw somebody worth saving.
Oh, yes. And they would tell me that. They would tell me I'm a miracle, and that I was not a burden, and that this was their job, that they went to school just to help people like me, and that it's not it's not up to them on who they decide, like they don't get to decide who's worthy. And they would tell me that, like, we don't get to decide. We just do our job to make sure that you survive.
Tell me a bit about your journey from that point to sobriety, Bristol.
So my journey to sobriety took a while. For 3 years after my burn injury, I struggled with acceptance of my injury, understanding the gravity of it, understanding that this was not something that I could just ignore and it was gonna go away. When I got out of the hospital, they sent me home with prescription medication. It was when I got out of the hospital, they were already trying to wean me off of all of the medications I had. So it was already barely taking the edge off when I was discharged. Well, then they're trying to wean me down even more, still in a lot of pain, but they don't want to give me the medication because it's narcotics. And they know that I struggle with my substance use. So I went looking on the street for substances, and because I was home with my mother, who also struggled with substance use, it was not very hard to find. Once that happened, I really started just using substances and drinking all the time, and really kind of getting more out of control as it went on. My mother and I started clashing. She was kind of afraid that I was going to hurt myself again because of I was angry at my appearance. I didn't want to be around anybody. And if you were going to be around me, you were going to be getting high with me. If you're not going to sit here and look at my face unless we're getting high. And that's how it was for the next 3 years. I had friends that weren't in the circle that I was using with that I would call random hours of the night and tell them how I was doing, what the latest catastrophe in my life was, emergency, whatever. Like, everything was always an emergency, a catastrophe, and had to be right now or it was the end of the world. That's how all drug addicts, it's the end of the world if you don't help me do whatever I need to do, it's going to be the end of the world. That's how a lot of us act when we're using. And so this friend of mine, I would call often in the middle of the night and just unload all my trauma and all the things that were going on. And he was sick of hearing it all the time, like a broken record, wee hours of the morning. He's in a different state than I am, and he has to work in the morning. And so he finally asked me if he bought me a ticket, if I would get on the plane and leave from where I was to come stay with him. And he bought a ticket, and he sent it to me, and he said, if you do not get on the plane, I cannot afford to get a new one, and I don't want to hear from you again. He said, if you don't get on this flight, just don't call me anymore. And it was a friend that I've had since childhood has seen me go through all of these horrible things that I've explained today, and was willing to give me that one last Hail Mary to get my shit together. And I got on the plane, and on that flight manifested a new life on the other side of my addiction, and really thought about this being a clean slate, and really like to change my life and not do anything that I associated with from my past. And though that was really hard to do, I'm happy to say I'm 41 months sober still. And yeah, that was in October of 2022 that I got on that plane and changed my life.
You were reflecting on how, as a child, you didn't feel like you had much self-worth. What is that like for you now?
It's taken a lot of coaching myself, but I really do love myself these days. I'm glad that you asked that, because part of my recovery too I look at myself in the mirror, in the eyes, in the morning, and I am the first person that I tell, I love you, Crystal, and it costs a lot of money to look this good. Better go show them how we do it.
Why do you feel it's important to advocate for people that have been through similar experiences to you or other burn survivors?
So I think it's important because it's important for us to see people like us in the media, in the public. I have a very visible difference. I stand out in a room whether I want to or not. And so instead of shying away from it, I try to use it to the best of my ability and use it as an opportunity to educate people. A lot of people, when asked about my fire, my burn injuries, scars, whatever, most of them, they expect it to be like a more honorable way that it happened. They're not ready for the answer. I have really been working on sharing my story more with the world to honor the little girl inside of me that survived and experienced it all, and to show people that beautiful things can come from our darkest moments. And you are not too far gone. And I thought that at one time. I thought I was too far gone for help. And I'm not. And neither are you.
I definitely thought about killing myself. Definitely. For me, it was just because the pain was so bad. And I was ashamed and disgusted that I was an addict and that I was a mum. Sorry, I'm getting a bit emotional there.